is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the altar again, and this time we are here with Shelby of the Almighty Ulthar. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, man. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, anytime, man, anytime. Thank you for giving us a double dose of new Ulthar for 2023. We got Helionomicon and Anthronomicon coming out. Was it a preconceived vision? Like, did you go into the studio right away knowing that this was going to be sort of like a double endeavor, or was it just you had so much material, it just kind of happened that way?
Yeah, this was the idea from day one, basically. After our last album, Providence, came out, Providence came out in May of 2020, right after the pandemic had just become a huge thing, and we had to cancel 80 tour dates, something like that, two U.S. tours and a European tour, and so all of a sudden we were just sitting there with all this time on our hands, and the idea came first, and then we filled it all in, basically.
Yeah.
After the initial idea.
Yeah. By the way, your cat in the background just made the interview awesome, and I like 10 times more off. Every time a cat photobombs the interview, I welcome it. I'm not editing that out, just so you know.
Oh yeah, please don't. She'll probably stay there the whole time. That's Petunia up there.
Oh, nice to meet you, Petunia.
Yeah, she loves it on top of the Marshall stack. That's one of her favorite spots.
If you play it while she's on, does that scare her away?
You know what? I've never played through the amp with her on top of it. I'm sure that would scare the shit out of her, but when I have music coming out of my speakers, especially stuff with blast beats like grindcore and stuff, she comes over and falls asleep by the speaker. I think it reminds her of her mom purring or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's really into blast beats.
That's adorable. You gotta send this to animal research or something like that. Maybe they could.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just theorizing, but yeah, she definitely grinds.
Yeah, there you go. My dog's always slept near the piano too, so animals love music as much as us. But being that this is a double endeavor, and with Helionomicon and Anthronomicon, was this a conceptual idea? Are these albums meant to be not just appreciated for the music, but also for a specific meaning? Because I've noticed with double albums like this, there usually is a sort of conceptual aspect that's being explored.
Somewhat. It started off with sort of the idea, I mean, from the titles, Anthronomicon is Book of Man, Helionomicon is Book of the Sun. And we sort of started writing from those perspectives, from the terrestrial and from the cosmic. But we got kind of, as we always do, we got kind of carried away in different directions, and it ended up being a much more messy, sprawling affair than we had originally envisioned. But, obviously, aesthetically, they're connected. The two covers are one piece of art sliced down the middle. So when you hold the two covers together, it's just one cohesive piece of art. So I still feel like it is one cohesive vision, but two standalone albums,
Absolutely.
It's kind of like blurring the line between the two.
Absolutely. That's what I found so unique about it, is because I felt while I love double albums, I feel like sometimes if there's a double or triple album, they're kind of meant to be listened to in a specific order. I think Skahamish did that with their triple album. Heaven Shall Burn did that with their double album. But I feel like with this, you could almost approach it from the Book of Man or the Book of the Sun in any order. It almost seems like it's not. It doesn't have to be a chronological listen.
Right. It definitely doesn't, and we're not telling anyone to listen to it one way or another.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I would say the way that I see it, and I can't speak for my bandmates, but the way that I see it is sort of Anthronomicon is more of a traditionally structured 8-song album, where you can listen to that album, and if you can get through those 8 songs and somehow make sense of those 8 songs, it's kind of like a doorway to Helionomicon, which is just 2 giant 20-minute songs that are if you can wrap your head around the songs on Anthronomicon, then see how Helionomicon treats you, see if you can wrap your head around that. You know what I mean? It's kind of graduating to the next level. But that's just my take on it. And, people should listen to it however they want to listen to it,
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm reading into this way too deep, but is there like a specific reason why it's like a concoction of shorter songs on Anthronomicon and it's a combination, it's just two longer songs on Helionomicron? Does that have to do with the concepts of the Book of Man and the Book of the Sun?
Not necessarily. I think it was just like the groundwork that we laid out for ourselves. I don't know if we put that much thought into it, as far as song lengths, like representing anything conceptually. Steve Peacock, the bass player from Ulthar, he wrote half the songs and I wrote half the songs. So he wrote 4 songs on Anthronomicon and 1 song on Helionomicon, and I did the same. And that was just sort of how we split it up. Like, you write these songs, I'll write these songs, we'll come together and jam on it. And it was more of a practical way of splitting it up, I guess.
Does it at all have any relationship or connection to your previous albums, Providence and Cosmivore, or was this kind of like a more or less kind of like a standout in the Ulthar catalog?
I mean, outside of just being like similar in sound and the lyrical composition, like I think we do have a sound and we have a style of songwriting and a style of lyrics that carried over from the first 2 albums. And I think thematically it's kind of hard to pin down where we're coming from thematically, which is on purpose. Like I personally, I try to kind of like obfuscate the lyrical themes in our songs on purpose, just to make things more confusing and more weird. So it's kind of hard to connect things thematically because we're a very messy, chaotic band, you know what I mean? But as far as like, obviously it's the same artist did all the artwork for all the albums. There's like a very coherent like aesthetic theme to all of our albums, and I think there's just a vibe that runs through all of them. But there isn't any like, I don't think there's like any storyline necessarily. Well, actually there kind of is. We're kind of building our own mythology, kind of like Immortal, along the way too. So there is that. We're kind of building our own little universe. So I guess the answer is yes, actually.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that too, because from listening to these 2 albums and feeling a connection between the 2 and then going back to listening to the first 2 albums, you're right. You do build your own universe. I don't know if this is on the back of your minds at all, but like I can almost see Ulthar's music being expressed through other mediums of art, whether it will be in film or like a graphic novel or something like that, because you really are kind of building your own experience, not just your own music.
Yeah, and that's something that's we're definitely thinking about that when we're creating the music. Like there is an Ulthar sound that we're pursuing and we're expanding upon from album to album, as we go. I don't know if we had thought about it so much on Cosmivore, but once that album came out and we toured on it for a while, we kind of like figured out who we were and the direction we wanted to go, and we've kind of built on that ever since.
Yeah. In order to like get that inspiration in a way, like in order to get that creative drive, is it better to be in the company of your bandmates, or isolation being such a great fuel for creativity, you prefer to be alone when it comes to either writing lyrics or writing riffs or anything like that?
For me personally, I work better alone, and I do get along great with Steve and Justin, my bandmates in Ulthar. I'm very lucky to be in a 3-piece band with 2 guys that like I can be on the road with for 35 days in a row and still like them at the end. You know what I mean? We're very lucky that we get along together. But I work well alone. And actually, you talk about isolation. Not only did we have the pandemic to deal with during the writing of this album, but we used to all live in the Bay Area. And at the beginning of the pandemic, Steve moved to Portland, and then a year into it, I moved to Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. So we don't even really have the option of like working together in the studio. There's certain times, like a couple months before we recorded the 2 LPs, me and Steve flew out to Oakland and we spent a week with Justin, just like jamming on the songs and stuff. And I'm going back there next month to just like run through the set and hang out and get caught up on our music. So it's not really an option for us to like just go in the studio and jam. We all write remotely and exchange demos and stuff. That's how when we started off, we wrote our songs, in the studio basically, but that's completely changed since then.
Hmm. When upon building your own universe in a way, like you have these elements of literature that you're incorporating into your new albums, but like, does your personal life or your personal emotions also serve as a means of inspiration, or do you try to use music as more of an escapism in a way?
Um, like I said before, I do write about reality. I do write about issues in the world, but I I purposefully deconstruct them so that it's either completely unreadable or takes a lot of work to even know what I'm talking about, because I just want it to fit in that like chaotic framework of Ulthar, and I don't feel like Ulthar's a band to be like, having some sort of like political message or anything like that. But I think of things, I think of things in life that fucking terrify me, like ideas that freak me the fuck out. And, that's what I put in lyrically, and then just sort of like cut it up and move it around until it's unrecognizable. And it's just little like fragments of terror and fear.
Does that make the songwriting process just as deteriorating as it could be cathartic?
Yeah, I think so. It's, yeah, it definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a way, I guess it's a way of like tearing things down and making a mess of it so that it makes sense to yourself, if that makes sense.
It almost seems like with your songwriting process, a lot of things are coming apart, and you're and the band are kind of putting them together in a way.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely a lot of like, with our music, we definitely try to like deconstruct things in an interesting way and then put them back together, like in the musical framework too.
Does that make it a little bit easier when you have like chaos and this sort of like boundaryless songwriting process? Does that maybe make it a little bit easier to experiment with your sound and like try to incorporate different elements as well?
Yeah, definitely. We don't like impose any rules on ourselves. We're not a band that's like, oh, we are a black metal band or we are a death metal band. It's like we just write riffs that we think are cool, and it can be really anything. It's just a matter of what we like.
And being such a prolific artist, between Ulthar and Vastum and so many bands to even count, your Metal Archives page is like just as extensive as Tony Campos's at this point. But like,
Yeah.
um, is there a usual method behind the madness that applies to every project that you're involved with, or is every project a different creative mind frame?
Yeah, there's definitely like, when I'm writing music, it's like I never write a song and then decide what band it's for afterwards. Like I'm always writing, I always know what project I'm writing for, since they all sound so different. I mean, to me at least.
Yeah.
It's not like I could take an Ulthar song and be like, oh, this is a Vastum song, or take a Vastum song and be like, this is a Human Corpse Abuse song. It doesn't work like that. So everything just sort of moves in cycles. It's like all of my bandmates are in other bands, and you just sort of work on an album when people are free, and you get together, you record the album, hopefully you do some touring, and then you go do something with your other band and you come back to that band later. Everything just sort of moves in cycles.
Mm-hmm. Could, though, experimenting with one project allow you to approach another project with a clean slate in a way? Did maybe exploring this conceptual aspect of Ulthar, maybe that can incorporate some stuff into Vastum in a way?
Yeah, I mean, there's always crossover here and there. Like writing a Vastum song and a riff kind of gets away from me and gets too weird and complicated, and I'm like, oh, maybe this is an Ulthar riff, and it'll go on the back burner, for that. But yeah, there's definitely like, there's things that get away from me and end up landing in a different basket, I guess.
Every time I've asked a band like how the making of an album was, a lot of times they would say, oh, we all had mutual agreements, we all agreed. I never believe it when they tell me that. You're in a band between 3 to 5 people. You're making 10 to 12 songs. There's going to be, of course, some disagreement or different emotions throughout the song. Could maybe, though, your different opinions or you guys being in different headspaces maybe actually help enhance the song in a way and bring in new ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a little bit of tension can help the music, definitely. but like I said, the three of us, we get along really well, and we had a very like explicit agreement at the outset of the band. Like, there's three of us, so if there's ever, some sort of not even argument, but like if there's ever a disagreement about something, we just take a vote. And it's clear that if it's 2-1, you just accept that it's 2-1 and move on. That's the benefit of playing in an oddly numbered band unit. You know what I mean? Like, as long as the loser can accept it, which we all can. So that's how we handle stuff like that. Is just like being a democracy. It's 2-1, like, move on. And none of us have egos that are gonna like challenge that, really.
I wonder how Slipknot does it with 9. It's an odd number.
Yeah, but it's still 5-4, so
yeah.
It would be worse if it was 10 probably. Then you get the 5-5 stalemate.
Yeah. Oh, but God, just imagine like the 4 don't accept defeat and then they go against the 5. I mean, maybe that's why Iowa sounds so amazing, but who knows? Here comes the most difficult question of the interview, if you're ready.
Sure.
How do you know when you're finished with a song?
I don't know. It's pretty easy for me. I generally like. There are some like very vague rules for me. Like, I generally don't put more than like 10 riffs in a song. I generally don't repeat parts more than 2 times. So there is kind of like boundaries around the outside of like what I'll do for a song. And yeah, I don't know. It's pretty easy to know. Like, I don't go back and tweak things too much. Like, when I write a song, and I like it, then I'm not going to go back and like fine tune shit a million times. Like, I feel like that starts taking away from the song eventually. Like I stick to pretty much like the original vision and don't fuck with it too much.
That's impressive, because some people, like, I can only imagine how frustrating it could be for some people if like you have one idea and then it just completely transforms into something else. Like, I'd imagine there's millions of examples for you where things were supposed to go one way and they end up
playing in bands like earlier in my life, being bands that like wrote songs in the studio. Basically, there was like lots of experiences working with a band where it was like one song, it would take months to write one song, and that never happens anymore. It's like I tend to be very focused, and like, if I'm gonna write a song, I write the song and do a demo of it, and like, that's it. I'm moving on to the next thing.
Fair enough. And I have 2 more questions for you. Then there's the matter of playing this material live. When it comes to playing live, is there at all maybe a similar energy that goes into playing live as you do when you're songwriting, or would you consider them 2 completely separate forms of self-expression?
I think it's pretty different. The writing process is much more cerebral, and the live process is much more physical and like just like present. Like, you're feeling the energy live, and it's a very physical, like visceral experience. Whereas, I think it's much more cerebral. The writing process.
When you play this new material live, are you gonna play like both of the 2 songs off of Helionama? Kind of like, is that gonna consist of a set in a way, or?
I would love to, but it's gonna be a long time before we have the time to get in a room and like jam through those songs and get them tight enough to play them live. I would love to, but like, honest answer is like, it's gonna take us a long time to get to that point.
I never understood how Opeth could memorize all those freaking parts to like their 17-minute long songs or something like that.
No, it's very difficult. Yeah, you need a lot of time.
Yeah, definitely.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. So before we go, finally, I just want to thank you, so much for your time today, for such an awesome conversation. I loved your cats coming into the background.
Thank you. I don't know if you saw, but they were like chasing each other around the room.
I did, and I was listening to everything you were saying, but like I definitely. No, man.
I totally understand. When there's cats in the room, like, that's where my eyes go to. They're very entertaining.
Yeah, I love cats. So, is there just anything else with Ulthar or Vastum or any other project you're involved with that you would like to plug before we head out?
I mean, every band that I play in right now is in some some phase of the process of writing or recording an album. So I don't have any release dates to share right now, but all of my bands are working on something, so there will be announcements forthcoming.
And any tours or live shows we could be expecting?
No, I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, but Ulthar can't book any tours right now because I'm recovering from throat cancer.
Oh,
I was
I'm sorry.
actually diagnosed in June of last year and went through radiation and chemotherapy. And I'm good. Like, my prognosis is good, and it looks like it's gone and it's in remission. But doesn't change the fact that I can't sing right now.
Of course.
So unfortunately, like, even, hopefully my voice is back in a couple months, but nobody knows how long it's going to take, really. So it's just not an option for us to book a tour right now, as much as I would love to.
Yeah.
So yeah, unfortunately we can't book anything right now, but
We'll focus on getting better first. That's
yeah,
what matters.
yeah. And I am getting better, every day I am getting a little better. So I'm thankful for that, but it's got to be on the back burner for now.
Totally understandable, but thank you for giving us new music and for continuing us to gift us with your art. We really appreciate it.
Of course, man. There'll be more on the way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Ulthar. Be sure to check out Helionomicron, or Helionomicon, not Nomicron. I was listening to a lot of black metal before this interview, so Helionomicon and Anthronomicon. Be sure to pick those up. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.